Hello everyone, this is International Master Andrew Martin and I'm also a FIDE Senior Trainer. And welcome to this completely new YouTube channel called the Morphy Club, which will be devoted to an attacking style of chess. Now, to kickstart the channel, we are going to look at some games by Paul Morphy himself. Morphy, of course, one of the most interesting characters in the entire realm of chess history. Why is that? Well, it seems to me that he taught the chess world how to attack and how to play open positions like no other player before or since. Morphy was way ahead of his time, like all the very best players in chess history, and this is why his games are so instructive. Morphy himself was born long ago in 1837 in New Orleans, Louisiana, and in fact he learned the game when he was 10 years old. There was a lot of chess in the family, and so he was able to play against fellow family members to give him practice. Such was his command of the game that at age 12, only 2 years after learning the moves, he was able to play the following game. And so this will be my first game on the channel. Morphy has white against the local New Orleans master, Eugene Rousseau. And really it was this game that propelled Morphy into the limelight. What sort of player was this that could play such brilliant chess? Well, in those days, the King's Gambit was a very, very popular opening. Mainly because it was the norm for players to accept gambits in those days. There was no rational defensive play. It was a question of honour. You accepted the gambit and then you took your medicine. So Rousseau took the gambit pawn and Morphy played knight to f3. That Morphy realised at the age of 12 the King's Gambit was a good opening. It was an opening with which you could get onto the attack. You were firing with all guns blazing at f7. Well, this was in itself revelatory. And Morphy, in this particular game, essayed the famous all-guy gambit. Perhaps in these days of the computer and the severe rationality of the modern era, the all-guy gambit is not the best opening to play, but in those days it was a fearsome weapon, as Black had to work out all the complications on his own. Now, the all-guy gambit is a line where white takes on f7. It looks good to put the knight in on g5 like that, but we quickly realise the knight's actually trapped, and so he has to sacrifice his life on f7 for an attack on the enemy king. Morphy, with characteristic fearlessness, just that. And now it's a question of what white plays. Well, in those days there were no theory books, so I guess Morphy plays the most straightforward move here. Queen takes g4. I actually don't think that move is particularly good in the light of 180 years of theory since this game, but I think you'll agree, if you're sitting on the black side, that move looks pretty dangerous. Now, the more common tries for white are clearly moves like knight c3. And the usual recipe against the all-guy gambit these days is just to include the move f3. And the point of this is that Black counter-sacrifices his pawn on f4 in order to try and close the f-file and thus beat back the white attack. Typical play could easily go bishop c4 check. And now the black king finds a rather safe haven on g7. And if white takes on f3, then black plays the key move here, bishop e7. Both developing a piece and opening up fire against the pawn on h4. And the disappearance of the pawn on h4 actually can cause some serious troubles for white's king. And this is why modern masters don't really play the all-guy gambit. I mean, you might get some maniac like Grandmaster Simon Williams from England essaying the gambit, but in general Black should be doing rather well here. White doesn't really have any way to continue the attack, and no justification for being a piece down, of course. If he takes on g4, then we've got queen f6 check, aiming at f2, and if he goes bishop e3, just hoping for development to bail him out, then knight c6 and h5 is quite good enough for Black. Black is a piece up in this position, let's not forget that. So going back to the critical position after king takes f7, d4 has also been played. dispensing with the bishop check for the time being, but the recipe is still the same, f3. It's this move that really gums up the works in the Allgaier gambit. But if we return to the game Morphy versus Rousseau, you have to understand the way the black player is looking at this position. He's probably a casual player. He is having to invent a defence at the board. And he's playing a young man who is exhibiting complete fearlessness. No respecter of reputations. He's just going for it. So it's understandable that Rousseau played queen to f6. And for the time being, that's quite a decent move. There's nothing wrong with it. And the idea is that after bishop c4 check, black's going to play king to e7. This looks like a strange move, but as we'll see, the main reason black does this is to try and run with the king to d8 and to escape the white attack that way. Well, Morphy continued with development. Morphy, as we'll see from his games, was an absolute master of the open game, and he understood, like no other player, that development, accurate development, was the order of the day. And of course here, white's setting up the immediate threat of knight d5 check, so black stops it with c6. Now comes e5. A line clearing sacrifice of a pawn. Again, very modern for that time, almost unheard of, but at the same time, a very good move indeed, continuing the pressure on black. I mean, actually, white can play another good move here, and that's d4. A move with the same motivation, just opening up lines at the cost of a pawn. If black takes that pawn, then bishop takes g8 is pretty strong. And if black runs with the king, he allows white to take on f4. And now with all the lines opening up, black's probably got to try queen takes d4, then white takes on g8, queen g7, and then we just take it and go bishop b3. With actually a position in which white is now, believe it or not, pawn up. So maybe the move d4 was good. e5 is pretty good as well. Rousseau took the pawn, and now Morphy played king to d1. Just making room for his rook to come to e1. And again, this is a very scary thing for black to have to contemplate. And it's here that Rousseau really goes wrong. He plays the plausible move, king to d8. Now what he should do here is to take the opportunity, the first opportunity he's got to get his knight out. That has to be the correct move. And then after queen f3, to continue with the cold-blooded move d6. Intending to answer rook e1 with bishop g4. After that, I think black could really have counted on defending this position out. Instead, king d8, an unnecessary move as it turns out, gives white the tempo he needs to get the attack into decisive mode. And after rook e1, queen c5, Morphy takes on g8, ridding black of that useful defending knight. Rousseau played d5, and now a crunching move, a characteristic Morphy move. He never missed the chance to launch a combination. Rook to e8 check. A beautiful move with a key point a couple of moves down the line. Rousseau took that knight. Morphy came in with his queen, and after king e7, the beautiful move, knight takes d5 check. An absolute bone crusher. The black queen is unprotected, therefore black can't take with the pawn, and of course he takes with the queen, bishop takes queen. So he played king d6, allowing white the chance to checkmate with queen to c7. So a very entertaining game, absolutely typical of Paul Morphy, and what a game to have played in 1849 at the age of 12.